You're wet, sandy, and shivering from the cold. Your feet and hands have blisters, every muscle on your body hurts, and your eyes are closing. But if you sleep, you drown. This is not a real battle, but you can still die here. Welcome to Hell Week. Every aspiring Navy SEAL needs to go through a 6-month training course called Basic Underwater Demolition, SEAL, or BUDS. The first phase ends with Hell Week, where individuals learn to be effective team members under mental and physical stress. According to the Navy, there have been 10 BUDS training-related deaths since 1953. The most recent was Kyle Mullen, who died of bacterial pneumonia on September 2022. Today we'll take a look at what each day holds for you and how you can make it out of Hell Week alive. Be prepared to follow your instructor's orders. If they say jump, you jump. If they say crawl, you crawl. And if they tell you to click that subscribe button, you better click it. Day 1. Sunday evening, chaos. The night before the first day, instructors will shoot blanks and simulate explosions to mentally throw you off. Then they get you to do hundreds of reps of push-ups, flutter kicks, and running in and out of the surf zone. Don't think about it as a week. It will become easy to feel overwhelmed. Try to keep yourself focused on short time frames, like the fact that you get to eat about every 6 hours. They need to feed you because that is the only thing keeping you alive. Eat everything on your plate. You're gonna need those extra calories. Day 2, Monday, log PT. This exercise starts with you and your teammates picking up a 68-kilogram log. You'll need to carry it over a sand berm, drop it, pick it up again, and put it over your head. Then you'll run into the ocean and carry it back to the start point. Finished? Great. Now do it again, and again, and again. You don't know how long it is going to be, and this uncertainty will mess with your head. When your muscles are burning and the log starts feeling heavier, look at your teammates. If they can still do it, then you can too. You'll need to communicate and work together. If Hell Week doesn't teach you to be a team player, nothing will. Day 3, Tuesday, rock portage. You'll have to paddle several hundred meters to a large rock formation and land on the slick rocks. You must do everything you can to keep your body out of the space in between the rocks and the boat. This is easier said than done. Before you know it, you'll be slammed into the rocks and the boat will be slammed into you. Prevent falling by staying low to the ground when you are on the rocks to keep your center of gravity low when the waves break into you. Some trainees will likely drop out due to sustaining injuries after this task. Day 4, Wednesday, around the world paddle. At this point, you're likely going to be hallucinating from lack of sleep. The bad news is you and your team now have to go on a 12-hour boat race. The good news is the winning team gets some extra sleep. So keep paddling and keep your teammates awake. If you fall, and you probably will, focus on holding on to your paddle and getting back to the boat as fast as possible. If you're the first team to finish, you'll get to sleep on the beach until the last team arrives. Cuddling with your teammates will be the best way to stay warm. Day 5, Thursday, hide and seek. You are so physically exhausted that you don't know how much longer you can go. But you'll have to use your brain to hide from the instructors in a stealth game of hide and seek. If they can't find you and you win, you can hang out by a bonfire. After 4 days of being wet and cold, being by a fire will feel like heaven. Let's hope you have some funny stories, because instructors will let you stick around longer if you can make them laugh. Day 6, Friday, carrying the boat. Many people are gone by now, but you still have one more test. You must carry the 120-kilogram inflatable boat on your head, and each part comes with its difficulties. If you are in the middle, you will have constant pressure, but at the front or the back, you'll have constant bouncing on your head as you're running. A good way to be prepared for this punishment is to do neck exercises and core workouts for months or even years before going to Hell Week. Finally, Friday morning, you have made it through the training course. On average, only 25% of candidates succeed in this training, so this was no small achievement. You've learned that your body is stronger than you ever imagined, and the teammates you've succeeded with will likely be your friends for life. A Navy SEAL could possibly survive the most gruesome scenarios, like being trapped in the Andes. But could you do it?
Rick, where'd you get a hand grenade?
I don't know.
So there you are, minding your own business, when suddenly something lands at your feet. Before you can even say kaboom, you realize that the mysterious little object is a live grenade. What can you do to survive a grenade blast? A grenade by itself isn't really anything to be afraid of. That is, until the pin is pulled. You know that waffle pattern outside most grenades? Well, imagine those as tiny missiles, and when the grenade explodes, they spread shrapnel in all directions. These flying metal fragments could seriously ruin your day by injuring you or even killing you.
Oh my God, how do they walk away in movies without flinching when it explodes behind them? There's no way!
So, if one of these little bundles of death lands at your feet, what the heck do you do? Hit the deck? Or say a little prayer? Well, we're ready to blow this question wide open. Here are our best tips to help you survive a grenade blast. Number 1, move. When a grenade lands near you, you'll want to move faster than you've ever moved before. You've only got about 1 second to run or jump away as fast as you can. In a best case scenario, you'll get about 4.5 meters away from the blast. That's about the farthest most people can go in 1 second. Number 2, hit the deck. Next, get as low to the ground as possible. You'll want to lie down on your stomach. That's the best way to avoid being hit by shrapnel, as it reduces the surface area of your body that the shrapnel could hit. Number 3, feet out. So you're on your stomach next to a grenade. That's not exactly how you thought your day was going to go, right? Well, what you want to do is position yourself with your feet pointing towards the grenade. That way, if the shrapnel does hit you, it will enter the soles of your shoes and maybe your feet. I know that's not ideal, but it's a heck of a lot better than having shrapnel hit your head. Number 4, cover up. Whatever you do, stay down. Turn your face away from the blast and cover your head, eyes, and ears. You do not want to expose your flesh, let alone your brain, to any part of the explosion. The grenade explodes, and now the dust starts to settle. Through a combination of your training and some sort of miracle, you're alive. Congratulations, you just survived a grenade blast. Talk about having some bragging rights. Grenades are extremely dangerous weapons, and they're not something to be taken lightly. If you ever have the misfortune of going toe-to-toe with one, you want to put some major distance between you and violent death. Our advice is, stay clear of them if you can. But a 10-kiloton nuclear bomb detonates in the middle of New York City, one of the world's biggest pedestrian areas. The explosion generates a white flash brighter than the sun, momentarily blinding people for a 10-kilometer radius, as far away as New Jersey. A wave of scorching heat and a giant fireball as hot as the sun reduces everyone within 30 meters to dust. Only stark silhouettes can be seen on the floor. Nuclear photographs of what seconds ago were people. Horrifying and this dreadful scenario is just the beginning. Today, we're mapping out a realistic simulation of a modern nuclear war.
Oh my lord!
Which nation would strike first? How many billions of people would die? And what kind of society would emerge on the other side? Now, which nations would be able to bring the world to ashes? Well, this is all hypothetical, but the United States and Russia stand as the two nations with the most substantial nuclear arsenals. Both possess thousands of nuclear warheads, enough to cause widespread destruction on an unimaginable scale. And they've already been exchanging threats, sanctions, and ultimatums. Bad blood is an understatement. 1 week before the impending nuclear exchange, panic ensues as global leaders appear unable to avert catastrophe. But then, the world's worst fear begins to materialize when the first use of a tactical nuclear weapon occurs, aimed at a Russian military target. There's an immediate loss of life and property near the strike zone. Panic spreads. Head to a fallout shelter immediately. If shelter isn't accessible, go to the most protected and insulated area of your dwelling because this is just the beginning. Russia, China, and Belarus are preparing a counterattack. US NATO allies are just as ready to push their red buttons. The fateful day arrives and the unthinkable occurs. Nuclear warheads rain down upon major cities, military installations, and key infrastructure. The initial strikes claim millions of lives in mere hours. The detonations trigger a series of cataclysmic events, including a powerful shockwave. Let's investigate how a shockwave affects people at varying distances from the epicenter. Well, we've already seen what happens when you're within 1 kilometer of the bomb blast. The extreme heat causes the complete vaporization of everything within the blast radius. Think about it as being cremated instantly at a temperature of 300,000 degrees Celsius or more. 5 kilometers away, the shockwave is still devastating. Structures are flattened and fires rage uncontrollably. The force of the blast can cause severe injuries and fatalities. The intense heat scorches the earth, causing third-degree burns to humans. Survival is an uphill battle as the world crumbles around you. 10 kilometers from ground zero, the shockwave is still potent. Buildings are damaged and the blast carries a destructive force. At this distance, immediate danger lessens, but the impact is still deadly. The heat can still cause first and second-degree burns. At 20 kilometers away, the shockwave has lost most of its initial power, but it's still dangerous. Buildings will experience structural damage, and the risk of injury still remains. The heat, while less intense, will still ignite fires. Survival here is more feasible, but your challenges are far from over. Okay, back to our timeline. Just 1 day after the nuclear exchange, tens of millions of people are dead and many more are injured. Entire cities have disappeared. There's nothing to do now but wait in a fallout shelter. Use a Geiger counter if you have one to monitor radiation levels and stay tuned to emergency broadcasts. Of course, the amount of destruction will depend on the size of the bombs. If you want more details, check out our video on the true scale of nuclear weapons and subscribe to our channel for more survival content. In the first week following the exchange, the world is gripped by shock and disbelief. Vast areas of Earth are shrouded in nuclear fallout, radiation, and relentless fires. These catastrophic effects have triggered secondary issues like a lack of food, clean water, and shelter. A silent killer emerges. Disease, spurred on by unsanitary conditions. The death toll rises. Soot and ash from the nuclear explosions and the ensuing fires leads to a cloud that blocks the sunlight from reaching Earth's surface. This leads to a significant drop in temperature. The world is now plunged into a nuclear winter. The immediate consequences of this are felt with acute severity. Food and clean water become even more scarce. Communities huddle together in a desperate bid for warmth and sustenance. You need to ration your food supplies and continue to monitor the radiation. As the first month unfolds, the world remains a bleak, irradiated landscape. Scavengers venture into the ruins of once thriving cities, scavenging supplies and resources. The dire situation leads to further struggles for access to water, food, and shelter. The death toll continues its relentless rise, surpassing 1 billion souls lost. The world finds itself in a relentless deep freeze. Survivors face an unyielding battle against extreme cold and dwindling supplies. As law and order break down, you'll need to form community alliances in order to provide mutual aid and protection of supplies. After the first year, makeshift governments begin to form, attempting to provide some semblance of stability. The death toll now? More than 3 billion. Society tries to come to terms with the reality of a world without modern conveniences, connectivity, or the comforting hum of technology. Renewable energy sources are explored to generate some meager warmth and limited electricity. Small communities continue trading resources and knowledge. Healthcare services tentatively begin to reemerge, and getting a basic education becomes crucial for a new generation. Try to be an active member of your community by teaching the youth, growing plants in vertical gardens, and participating in reconstruction projects. At the 5-year mark, the world has permanently changed. Surviving communities grow in size and number. Trade networks span larger areas, reconnecting isolated groups. Scientific collaboration aimed at solving the challenges of a post-apocalyptic world rekindles human hope. Traditional agriculture has evolved into controlled indoor farming, producing modest yields. Still, the death toll continues its relentless march, now surpassing 4 billion. And new local warlords are on the rise. Many species, including humans, still face the risk of extinction. While humanity's resilience is remarkable, the path to recovery is long and tiring. Let's hope this scenario remains firmly in the realm of fiction and that when the time comes, the world chooses peace over destruction.
Today we're comparing the scale of 6 of the world's most destructive nuclear bombs, including one so devastating it was deemed too risky to use. Brace yourself. It's about to get loud. Starting off, we have the 15-kiloton bomb that the US dropped on Hiroshima in 1945. Little Boy caused the deaths of around 80,000 people and exposed tens of thousands more to high levels of radiation. It gets worse. The temperature near the blast site in Hiroshima reached 300,000 degrees Celsius. For perspective, that's about 300 times hotter than the temperature bodies are cremated at. Sounds horrifying, right? Well, we're just getting started. In 2017, North Korea detonated a nuclear bomb 16 times more powerful than the one that devastated Hiroshima. The nuke is said to have weighed in around 250 kilotons. Ish. Yeah, here's where things get a little murky. Researchers aren't exactly sure what the power of the bomb was, and North Korea isn't spilling the tea. But they estimate it was between 148 to 328 kilotons. On the other hand, the US intel community estimated it was 140 kilotons. One thing is for sure, though. It was felt all around the world. Seriously, this bomb was so intense it caused an earthquake with a magnitude of about 6.3. The sound waves from the explosion were so powerful they were picked up by seismometers worldwide. Up next is one of the most powerful bombs in the US's arsenal, the B-83. This nuke has a yield of around 1.2 megatons of TNT. But what does that mean exactly? Well, let's break it down. You don't need to be a nuclear physicist to know you want to be far away from one of these. Once it hits, it'll create blast waves with a force of about 180 metric tons and wind speeds of 255 kilometers an hour within a 6-kilometer radius. If you were within about a 21-kilometer radius, you'd experience flash blindness. Within an 8-kilometer circle, you'd get third-degree burns, where your body tissue gets blistered and then destroyed. And if you're within a 1-kilometer radius, you'll be hit by blast waves with 720 metric tons of force and winds of 756 kilometers an hour. Medically speaking, it's gonna suck. There are about 650 B-83s in active service, so that's comforting. Next up, Castle Bravo. The biggest nuclear bomb ever tested by the US. It packed a punch of around 15 megatons and caused an explosion 2.5 times more devastating than researchers anticipated. And this was obviously a problem. Yeah, this bomb was 1,000 times more powerful than the one dropped on Hiroshima. Radioactive debris spread across 18,000 square kilometers, contaminating people on nearby islands and even on a Japanese fishing trawler. This was dubbed the worst radiological disaster in US history, and it caused a massive uproar against nuclear testing. Understandable when you see the staggering 7.2 kilometer wide, 39.6 kilometer high mushroom cloud. Oh, and it created a crater on the ocean floor nearly 2,000 meters wide and 76 meters deep. That's huge, but the next two on our list are even bigger. The Tsar Bomba 50 was not your average bomb. It was a hydrogen bomb and the most powerful one ever tested. It had a yield of about 50 megatons. In 1961, the USSR detonated it on a small Arctic island, creating a shockwave that turned the island into a flat skating rink. The bomb was commissioned by Nikita Khrushchev and weighed 27 tons and required an aerial bomber to transport it to the Arctic. The detonation was so powerful that it knocked the bomber down 900 meters before the pilot could course correct. It's not hard to see why a bomb with this kind of power was never made again. But that doesn't mean the USSR didn't want to. Okay, so Khrushchev may have commissioned the Tsar Bomba 50, but did you know he originally wanted a 100 megaton nuclear bomb? Yeah, plus 50, baby! The plan was to create a 3-layered bomb with uranium layers separating each stage. But testing the bomb was too, risky. Even Soviet physicists were worried the bomb would cover the whole north of the USSR with a massive cloud of radioactive fallout. And if that wasn't enough, the bomb was too heavy. So heavy it couldn't be placed on a missile or strapped to any plane. And even if it could have, it would have taken a crazy amount of fuel to get to the target and fly away safely, making it a one-way trip for any pilot.
Nuclear threats have been rising globally. Now the button has been pushed, and within minutes, your city will be struck by a projectile that could kill millions of people. Even if you survive the initial blast, the dangers to your life could last days, weeks, or possibly years after the event. You have minutes to make the right decision, and we're here to help. Here's how to survive a nuclear missile attack. To pack their explosive punch, atomic bombs require nuclear fission. Hydrogen bombs, on the other hand, rely on nuclear fusion. And if you think witnessing these killer combos in action is something that you'd only see in an apocalyptic movie, think again. The world has approximately 13,000 of these weapons of mass destruction, 90% of which are owned by Russia and the US. Where's the best place to safely hide out? What body position would protect you from the explosion? And why shouldn't you condition your hair after the blast? Step 1. Get as far away as you can. The effects of a nuclear bomb can be devastating, but the key is distance. If a 140 kiloton device were to explode, the initial fireball radius would be about 400 meters. This would contain the highest concentrated level of radiation, which would then spread over 3 squared kilometers. The mortality rate in this area would reach 90%. The higher you go, the worse the effects would be. The air blast radius would be about 44 square kilometers. This zone will be characterized by the massive destruction of buildings with fire and debris everywhere. Add to this a thermal radiation area that will cover about 87 square kilometers. Anyone unfortunate enough to be situated here would experience instantaneous third-degree burns as they watch everything around them catch on fire. If you know that your town is now the target of a missile armed with a nuclear warhead, leave immediately. Being 1 kilometer away from the blast can save your life. Step 2. Find shelter. You're in the crosshairs, but not all hope is lost. Social media and news outlets have given you some advance notice. Get to a concrete building and head for the basement if possible. Rooms without windows are the safest places. If you can't find one, cover the windows or stay far from them to avoid being showered with broken glass. Stay there for at least a week. That's when most of the radioactive ash falls. Step 3. Protect your face. Unfortunately, you couldn't reach shelter before the blast and it caught you outside. Drop down to the ground immediately with your hands tucked under your body. In this position, your face can be somewhat protected from the massive wall of heat and debris. And no matter how far away you are, never stare directly at the explosion. The flash can temporarily blind you. Step 4. Take a shower. After the explosion, you'll need to get rid of your clothes and shower as soon as you can to get rid of any radioactive material you may have on you. Don't scrub too hard. You can break the skin, allowing toxins to enter through the wound. Make sure to use soap for your body and shampoo for your hair, but skip the conditioner. It contains cationic surfactants that will trap radioactive particles in your hair. Step 5. Get to a radio. The post-missile aftermath will be horrific, with burning rubble, debris, and charred bodies everywhere. You won't have any electricity or internet thanks to the Nukes electromagnetic pulse wave, so a radio will be your best bet for hearing updates from emergency response workers. Your first instinct might be to go to check on your family and loved ones, but you need to follow their directions. You can't go anywhere you want just yet. The nuclear fallout means irradiated debris will be everywhere and made worse by blowing winds. That doesn't sound good. You survived catastrophic disasters in previous episodes like tsunamis, landslides, and hurricanes. But this time, the entire world is at stake. An all-out nuclear war has erupted. Countries are launching attacks and others are retaliating. What should you do to get out of this world-ending scenario? Get inside, because here's how to survive a nuclear apocalypse. Right now, 9 countries are in possession of nuclear weapons. If any one of them launched even one of the almost 15,000 nuclear warheads in the world, it could cause a wave of chaos and destruction. A blast from a 1 megaton warhead would vaporize anything within 1 kilometer from its center. All of the buildings within 7 kilometers would collapse from a blast of air. Anything in a 12-kilometer radius would be hit by a thermal blast hot enough to cause third-degree burns. Ouch. And you better look away, because everything within 20 kilometers would be hit with a flash of light. It isn't too dangerous, but it could cause you to go blind for a few minutes. What should you do when you hear the sirens? Why would fleeing be a bad idea? And how could you survive the fallout? I know surviving a nuclear apocalypse may sound like a daunting, impossible task, but here's a few tips on how to get through the initial blasts and the aftermath. Step 1. Hide. The sirens are blaring and everyone's in a panic. Better act fast, because you could only have a few minutes before impact. Your first instinct might be to evacuate and get as far away as possible. Hate your Monday morning commute? Well, imagine that, but much, much worse. The roads will likely be jammed with everyone trying to get out. This is a traffic jam that you wouldn't want to be caught in. You'll be a bunch of sitting ducks, and you can probably picture the rest. Your best bet is to hunker down and find shelter. If you or your neighbor have a bomb shelter, well, you don't need me to tell you where to go. If there are any underground subways nearby, go there. They're some of the safest places to withstand an incoming nuke. But if there aren't any subways nearby, try to find the largest cement building. In the best case scenario, go to the basement. If it doesn't have one, get to the center of the building. Hiding in a building will help to shield you from the blast. Going as deep as you can underground will protect you when the radiation hits. Today is your lucky day. You find a basement to hide in. Everything around you violently shakes as you hear a deafening boom. You find your bearings and the rumbling settles, but don't leave just yet. It's still incredibly dangerous outside. Step 2. Wait it out. If you head out now, you'll be facing nerve-searing heat and a whole lot of fallout. In as little as 15 minutes, radioactive bits of dirt and debris will start to fall from the sky. Soon enough, everything outside will be covered in irradiated dust. Coming in contact with this stuff can quickly induce radiation poisoning, which is a terrible way to die. Try to stay inside for at least 72 hours. After that, it will be safe for you to venture out. While you're in there, stockpile any packaged food, bottled water, and first aid supplies that were left inside the building. And make sure you don't eat anything that was outside and unpackaged during the blast. As hungry as you might be, that radioactive shrimp probably won't taste too good. You turn on your phone to call for help, but the internet and your phone service is knocked out. You can't stay here forever. It's time for you to explore this new radioactive world. Step 3. Look for information. You take a step outside. The world you once knew is now a wasteland. But don't stop and stare too long. Time is of the essence. The longer you're in contact with radioactive material, the more it will affect your body. Search nearby buildings for a radio. It's crucial to get information in a time like this. You could find help, learn where the shelters are, or figure out if there will be any more attacks. The radio hisses and crackles. Dead air. Step 4. Search for others. You can't depend on world leaders to get through this. You're going to have to rely on yourself and the help of others. While you're searching the nearby buildings, call out for other survivors. You can get a lot more done with friends, and you can work together to survive. If you do find others, and they're not so friendly, try to make a trade. If you don't have anything to give, you could use your skills as currency. Step 5. Move. You collect a decent amount of supplies and make a friend or two. Now you should consider traveling somewhere with warmer temperatures. A large amount of the ash and soot from the blast will be injected into the stratosphere, potentially blocking out the sun. Working on your tan will be the least of your worries. Temperatures around the world could drastically drop. Move away from the north, where it'll reach freezing temperatures during the nuclear winter. You and your group of survivors journey safely to the south. Unfortunately, because of the irradiated land, you'll have to live off canned beans and tuna for the rest of your days. But you made it through the nuclear apocalypse alive.
A blinding flash, a deafening roar, and an overwhelming wave of heat. You've managed to take shelter from a devastating nuclear blast, avoiding initial radiation. The immediate danger is past, but now you're exposed to deadly residual radiation. Fallout exposure is no joke. It has a 95% fatality rate. Sometimes its impact is obvious, but other times it's happening deep inside you. Today, we'll explore how your body reacts to nuclear fallout exposure over time. We'll cover the progression of radiation sickness hour by hour, day by day, and even years later. How long can you live after radiation exposure? When will the telltale symptoms start to appear? And would all the fallout turn you into a mutated ghoul? We'll answer these questions and more in a minute, but first, let's get the basics straight. To be precise, it's ionizing radiation we're worried about.
Ionizing radiation tears the cellular structure apart.
A type of energy released by atoms in the form of electromagnetic waves or particles. Ionizing radiation has enough energy to knock electrons off of atoms, turning them into ions. Imagine your body is a city and your cells are the buildings. Ionizing radiation is like a series of powerful lightning strikes hitting the city. Each strike can destroy buildings, cause fires, and blackouts. In your body, this means damaged DNA, malfunctioning cells, and an increased risk of cancer. Okay, that said, let's begin this tragic journey and see what it really takes to survive the aftermath of a nuclear bomb. Right after the blast, you're hit by intense heat and the shockwave from the explosion. The immediate thermal radiation can cause third-degree burns, even miles away from the epicenter. If you're closer, the blast can result in blunt force trauma and lacerations from flying debris. So basically, if you don't want to be burned or crushed to death, you need to find shelter immediately. Preferably someplace sturdy with thick walls like a basement or an underground shelter. This will offer some protection from the initial fallout, a deadly cloud of radioactive particles that descends like invisible dust. If you were exposed to gamma rays and neutrons, well, they've already passed through your body, causing molecular and cellular damage. You might have heard of an over-the-counter pill that saves you from radiation. Well, while it does exist, it only protects you from one kind of radiation. Potassium iodide, often abbreviated as Ki, works by flooding the thyroid gland with stable, non-radioactive iodine. The thyroid gland is a small gland in your neck that regulates important bodily functions through hormone production. And Ki prevents it from absorbing any radioactive iodine that enters your body.
The CDC says these tablets work, but only for 24 hours. Meaning they can block the intake of radioactive iodine for just 1 day.
Ideally, you should have got the pills and instructions from your local health department. 1 hour later, you're already dealing with initial radiation exposure. Radioactive particles from the fallout will be all around you, causing external contamination if they settle on your skin and clothing. If you inhale or ingest any of these particles, you're in for a rough ride. You might suddenly feel nauseous and start vomiting. These are the first signs of radiation sickness. That's your body's immediate response to the intense radiation damage occurring at a cellular level. If you have access to clean water, wash yourself thoroughly to remove any radioactive particles from your skin and hair. Avoid using conditioner as it can bind radioactive particles to your hair. Yeah, I don't care how soft and shiny it makes your hair look because, well, you may not have any hair left if things get worse. Within the first few hours, the acute radiation syndrome, ARS, begins to take hold. ARS is an illness that occurs when the entire body, or most of it, is exposed to a high dose of penetrating radiation. Unlike chronic radiation exposure, which happens over a long period, ARS results from a sudden, intense burst of radiation. That's what makes it acute. The first phase, known as the prodromal phase, kicks in with intense nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea, which is especially not fun if you picked a shelter without a toilet. Your cells are slowing down at this point, especially the rapidly dividing ones in your gastrointestinal tract and bone marrow. Your body is under attack and the clock is ticking. And while you really need medical help, you can't go outside just yet. Better yet, seal all the windows, doors, and ventilation systems to prevent radioactive particles from getting in. You'll thank me later. After your first day, your symptoms aren't letting up. Your body is trying desperately to get rid of toxins out of both ends. And, well, it's super nasty and exhausting. Your skin might start to show signs of erythema, a reddening due to radiation burns. It'll look like a sunburn, but it's the first sign of something worse. At this point, it's critical to stay in your shelter and avoid any further exposure to radioactive particles. Listen to emergency broadcasts for instructions on when it might be safe to leave your shelter. And don't let anyone in. Unless you want to risk further contamination. Yeah, I'm sorry, but your neighbor is out of luck. A deceptive period follows after a couple of days, the latent phase. Your symptoms may improve, giving you a false sense of recovery. But don't go celebrating just yet. During this time, your body is attempting to repair the massive cellular damage inflicted by the radiation. Continue to avoid any additional exposure and conserve your energy. Stay hydrated and try to rest as much as possible. And count your blessings because you're gonna need them for this next phase. By the end of the first week, the manifest illness phase begins. This is when your stomach goes haywire. You'll experience extreme dehydration and an imbalance of electrolytes. Let's hope you have some Gatorade on hand. The hematopoietic syndrome sets in as your bone marrow's ability to produce blood cells worsens. You'll have severe diarrhea, infections, bleeding, and extreme fatigue. If you still haven't had any medical help, focus on hydration and try to find any available sources of clean water and basic nutrients. As the weeks go by, the damage to your bone marrow continues to bring a handful of nasty conditions. Anemia causes fatigue and weakness due to a lack of red blood cells. Leukopenia increases your risk of infection because of a low white blood cell count. Thrombocytopenia means you'll bruise and bleed more easily due to a shortage of platelets. Radiation also affects hair follicles, so don't be shocked if you start losing some hair. And although your skin won't necessarily melt like in some movies, it can develop blisters, peeling, and changes in pigmentation. You won't turn into a mutated ghoul, but things can still get pretty ugly for you. The best you can do now is to stay as clean and infection-free as possible. Any open wounds need to be kept sterile. In the first 6 months following the exposure, long-term effects begin to manifest. Organs like your heart, lungs, and kidneys might start to experience chronic damage at this point. And your risk of developing leukemia and other cancers has skyrocketed from all the damage to your DNA. Regular medical screenings are crucial for early detection of cancers and ongoing health issues. Over the next decade, you'll be dealing with chronic health issues. That organ damage we mentioned earlier, it's gotten a whole lot worse. Pulmonary fibrosis causes lung tissue to become scarred and stiff. That leads to chronic cough, severe shortness of breath, and fatigue. Your kidneys stop filtering waste from the blood effectively, resulting in high blood pressure and swelling in your legs and feet. And damage to the blood vessels in your heart increases the risk of cardiovascular diseases. Exposure to fallout might have affected your fertility too, so get checked if you're planning on having kids. This whole situation is devastating, to say the least. We wish that the impact of nuclear fallout on victims existed only in theory, but unfortunately, humans have experienced its devastating effects firsthand. And the worst part is, it could happen again.
This certainly looks like a beautiful place to go hiking with a tour guide. But what if I told you that you're in one of the most dangerous spots in the world? This place is teeming with toxic radioactivity. Spend 1 minute too long here, and it'll be the death of you. I wouldn't want to be in your shoes right now. Here's how to survive the most radioactive places on Earth. Radiation is all around us. If you've been on a plane or had an X-ray at the dentist, you've been exposed to tiny amounts of radiation. The radiation you'd receive by taking a 5.5-hour flight from New York to Los Angeles is nearly 100 times less compared to the levels you would experience in some of the places we're about to take you. And you better pay attention, because danger might be closer than you think. What should you do after being exposed to radioactive material? What are the symptoms of radiation sickness? And why shouldn't you use conditioner? Number 5. Milusu, Kyrgyzstan. Located in Central Asia, this small town was practically built on nuclear waste. A large mining operation resulted in 3 million megatons of uranium being excavated and then simply buried, contaminating the region's water, specifically the Milusu River. Unfortunately, in this town, cancer is quite common as a result. Between 2006 and 2015, of the 235 people diagnosed with cancer, 197 died. If you ever visit Milusu, make sure to bring your own water and food supplies to avoid exposure to additional radioactive substances. Number 4. Pripyat Hospital, Ukraine. After the 1986 Chernobyl nuclear power plant disaster, firefighters and first responders were brought to this hospital for treatment. Medical instruments, tools, and documents were left in the building as they were way too contaminated to be removed. Despite being a tourist attraction now, it's forbidden to enter the hospital's basement. Filled with the clothing worn by doctors and nurses, it's a radioactive hotspot. Since official tours are given here, you'd be scanned for radiation exposure as you enter and when you leave. Even with that in place, you'd still need to be able to identify symptoms of radiation sickness. If you start to feel nauseous or your skin turns red or abnormally tan, you need to leave the area immediately and seek medical help. Number 3. Piarco River, USA. Church Rock, New Mexico has huge uranium ore reserves. In 1968, a large-scale mining operation was set up. Any waste was deposited in 3 lagoons fortified by a dam built on geologically unsound land. A decade later, the dam breached and poured 427 million liters of radioactive water into the river. The Piarco River supplied fresh drinking water to local communities for themselves and their livestock. As a result, people have suffered numerous health issues, including kidney damage and cancer. Play it safe. Bring your own water. Number 2. Golias, Brazil. In 1987, a robbery at an abandoned cancer clinic went terribly wrong when 2 thieves found a teletherapy unit used for cancer treatment still equipped with a canister containing a bright blue substance. They brought it home and, without realizing it, exposed friends and family to very radioactive cesium-137. The device was sold to a local junkyard where it was dismantled and the cesium-137 was released. Contamination was found over 161 kilometers away, and more than 100,000 people had to be monitored for radiation exposure. If you've been exposed to radioactive material, it is crucial to decontaminate yourself. Remove the outer layer of your clothing and put them in a sealable container and take it away from yourself and others. Take a shower as soon as you can. Use soap and shampoo, but make sure to skip the conditioner. It can make radioactive material stick to your hair. Number 1. Fukushima, Japan. In 2011, a magnitude 9.0 earthquake hit the Pacific off the coast of Japan, triggering a massive tsunami that flooded reactors at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant. 3 of them started to leak radioactive material following a fire caused by hydrogen air explosions. The spill meant 300,000 people had to be evacuated from the surrounding regions. While the plant was shut down, wastewater continued to be released into the Pacific. It'll take about 40 years to completely decommission the plant, so avoid taking a dip anywhere near it in the meantime. We are 3 weeks into World War III. China's invasion of Taiwan has been met with American planes and submarines. About 3,200 U.S. troops have died, and 2 American aircraft carriers have sunk in the Pacific. China has also taken a big hit, losing 10,000 troops and hundreds of combat aircraft and ships. Taiwan maintains its democratic autonomy, but the war has left the island devastated, losing basic services such as electricity. Japan and South Korea come to aid their American ally facing attacks from China. This is how a new global war would play out, according to a war game simulation conducted by a Washington think tank. But are we really that close to another major war? Well, some experts think we can't rule it out. Today we'll explore how we got to this point, how this war would be fought, and which nation would survive in the end. Let's start with the troubled relationship the US and China have had for a long time. The world's 2 largest economies have a long story of mistrust, tariff wars, and recently, spy balloons. But the most active region of tension between China and the US is Taiwan. This democratically ruled island is home to 24 million citizens. After the Communist Party won a civil war in 1949, the Nationalist Party fled to Taiwan and established a democracy. And although they've never controlled it, the Chinese Communist Party claims Taiwan as part of its own territory. So if the war took place and China captured Taiwan, it would not only weaken US power in the Indo-Pacific region, but it would also make China a world leader in semiconductors and microchip manufacturing. The United States has maintained a diplomatic position, walking a tightrope between acknowledging a one China policy without actually recognizing Beijing's sovereignty over Taiwan. This ambiguity keeps tempers high and the country's relationships on the brink of conflict. US President Joe Biden said at a Congress session in 2021 that he would maintain a strong military presence in the Indo-Pacific, not because he wants to start conflict, but to prevent it. Chinese Communist Party's General Secretary Xi Jinping responded by stating he doesn't rule out the use of military force to seize Taiwan. He also told the People's Liberation Army they should persist in using combat to guide their work and accelerate preparations for war. Sounds like China is ready for an invasion, but is it really possible? Foreign Minister of Taiwan Joseph Wu says they're trying to get ready for an attack, although they're not anticipating one in the immediate future. Wu also claimed Taiwan would fight the war itself rather than have other countries involved. But according to the Sydney Morning Herald, the United States would be helpless to stop a Chinese attack on Taiwan. Yeah, Beijing's rocket force is capable of crushing Taiwan's military along with its infrastructure and ports. By the time Washington learns of the attack, the Chinese missiles would have already caused extensive damage. But remember, China doesn't want to destroy the island, it wants to control it. And although it's not impossible, an invasion is easier said than done. The Chinese army would have to deploy their armed forces along the beach to reach the capital of Taiwan, Taipei. Even though China can quickly capture the island, it'll still have to deal with retaliations that could happen once the US learns of the news.
If China threatens our sovereignty, we will act to protect our country.
The Americans will soon send stealth planes, submarines, and aircraft carriers. But how many? And what awaits them when they arrive? The US has about 3,700 warplanes currently in service between the Air Force, Navy, and Marines. China has 1,264 combat aircraft. Taiwan's 150,000 troops wouldn't stand a chance against 1.9 million Chinese soldiers, the biggest army in the world. The US has the 3rd largest armed force, with 1.38 million active members. China has 320 nuclear warheads, 350 Navy ships, and 41 military satellites. The Americans have only 249 Navy ships, but they own 5,800 nuclear weapons and 212 military satellites. But of course, numbers aren't all that matter here. The US Army might be smaller than the Chinese, but American soldiers have been fighting wars for the past 20 years in Iraq and Afghanistan. Their training, experience, and equipment can give them an advantage over their Chinese counterpart. But the United States can't afford to send all of its troops to Asia. Meanwhile, the People's Liberation Army is already located near the conflict zone and can concentrate its forces. The Chinese dominance over the seas in the region is incredibly strong. They have 10 man-made islands, which are used as military bases. These islands are practically aircraft carriers that cannot be sunk. The US would have to send teams of Marine raiders to attack weapon systems. This would require satellite-guided munitions. This raises another question. How is a modern war actually fought? All this nuclear talk got you feeling uneasy? We don't blame you. Would you make it as the last person on Earth? Hit that subscribe button for some post-apocalyptic survival tips. A big part of this war would happen in space. Yeah, you heard me, space. Both sides would try to mislead or feed false information to each other's satellites, preventing drone attacks. New resources, such as long-range anti-ship weapons, can help the US fire at enemy ships without having to even enter the airspace, significantly reducing casualties. But their supply would run out within days. China is a world leader in the production of chemicals, metals, and electronics. It would be able to produce weapons and supplies much faster than the US. Cyber warfare is also an important component of any modern war. China has a history of hacking incidents in both the US and Taiwan. A cyber attack would damage people's lives in American homes by affecting electricity, connectivity, and healthcare, among other public services. Some other tactics might seem less violent, but can still destabilize a country fast. Take exports, for example. The US gets to import Chinese electronics, furniture, and shoes at moderate prices. If the war disrupts these exports, it could cause a depletion of products. That would destabilize thousands of businesses in America, causing unemployment and inflation. Now you see why this war is so tricky? Even a victory could feel like a defeat in the long run for the US. Some experts think that the war is extremely unlikely to happen because it would disrupt the imports and exports that China relies on for its economy. All calculations and simulations point to disastrous consequences and millions in losses for both nations and allies. We can only hope this is enough to prevent a new global war.
First delivered to the United States Air Force in 2006, this stealthy assassin can reach speeds of almost 2,000 kilometers per hour and carry 9 tons of weapons. But despite its astonishing lethality, the F-35 Lightning II isn't the world's deadliest combat jet, let alone the world's deadliest weapon. Over the last few decades, warfare has evolved in leaps and bounds, creating more cybernetic, more secretive, and more deadly weapons. Today, we're going to explore the 5 deadliest weapons that are ready to be deployed right now. And if you thought the deadliest belonged to the US Army, think again. Number 5, the M1 Abrams tank. This 55-ton monster is no doubt the deadliest tank in history. It was first deployed in 1991 by the US Army during the Persian Gulf War. Soldiers on board remember being hit by Iraqi Army tanks and suffering practically no damage. Powered by jet fuel, they reach speeds of 70 kilometers per hour, and they're extremely agile, traveling 40 kilometers per hour in reverse. But let's talk about firepower. The cannon can fire 9 massive 120mm rounds per minute to a distance of over 3 kilometers. And the secondary weapon is a fearsome machine gun that can fire almost 1,000 rounds per minute to a distance of almost 4 kilometers. So you certainly won't want to find this bad boy on the battlefield. Number 4, the AH-64 Apache gunship. You've heard a lot about the Black Hawk, but in reality, this famous American helicopter is a utility aircraft used for transporting troops and equipment. The real danger is the agility of this gunship. The Apache gunship bears more than 10 tons of deadly force, and it flies as fast as 280 kilometers per hour at heights of more than 6,000 meters. In combat, this deadly machine will fire more than 10 rounds per second with 30mm ammunition, and it can fire missiles and rocket pods. Launched in 1984, AH-64 Apaches have logged over 1.3 million combat hours and are expected to be in service well into the 2060s. Number 3, the F-22 Raptor. Older than the F-35 Lightning II, the Raptor was delivered to the U.S. Air Force in 1997. Since then, the skies haven't seen a more lethal weapon. Now, the F-35 may have more advanced communication systems and versatility, but the F-22 was designed to kill in the air. In addition to being more maneuverable and agile, it's also faster and more autonomous than its little brother. Its 3,000-kilometer range enables it to cross enemy lines, and its top speed, that has exceeded Mach 2, almost 2,500 kilometers per hour, makes it impossible for an enemy to chase it. It also carries air-to-air missiles and fires 480 rounds of 20mm bullets per minute. So it seems its air dominance is not about to be called into question anytime soon. Number 2, the Ohio-class submarine. These massive machines, at 170 meters long, are as big as 2 soccer pitches, and they weigh 20,000 tons. They have the capacity to carry more than 150 people for as long as their food supplies last. That's because they're powered by their own nuclear reactor. If you're wondering what makes these submarines so deadly, it's because they carry a huge portion of the U.S. nuclear arsenal. Actually, they hold more nuclear weapons than any other platform on Earth. Yeah, you heard that right. There are more nuclear weapons moving around in the ocean than there are any place else. And they're always ready to be launched. Yeah, scary, isn't it? But it's not as scary as the deadliest active weapon on the planet. Number 1, the father of all bombs. This Russian thermobaric bomb is the world's most deadly non-nuclear bomb, but make no mistake, it could be even more dangerous than a nuke. Its explosion will produce even higher temperatures than a nuclear bomb, vaporizing all life around it. Tested by the Russian army in 2007, it proved to be as deadly as a nuclear bomb. And in case you were wondering, yeah, it's still part of the Russian arsenal.
We've all seen drone light shows with gorgeous patterns in the sky. Unfortunately for you, the drones swarming are not that type of drone. This swarm is targeting you with the intent to kill you and everyone around you. Here's how to survive a drone swarm. A drone swarm is not just a bunch of drones that move together. The difference between true swarms and a drone light show is that light shows have a central computer tracking each drone and moving them together in accordance with area rules and regulations. A true autonomous swarm doesn't always require a central controller, and each individual unit has a slightly different set of rules to follow. If one of those rules is to wipe you out, what should you do? How can you outsmart a drone? Is it worth taking a shot? And how could a blanket save your life? A 2018 U.S. Army study estimated that swarming would make attack drones at least 50% more lethal, while at the same time decreasing their defensive losses by 50%. In the last couple of years, China, France, India, Spain, South Africa, the United States, and the United Kingdom have all tested or unveiled new programs for drone swarms. These drones can be used to gather information, communicate, or attack. There are programs currently working on counter-drone technology, like the Air Force's microwave-based Tactical High-Power Microwave Operational Responder System. But the problem is that there's a risk of civilian casualties. Step 1. Take cover. During a swarm, taking cover in dense forest can be effective for avoiding an attack if you're stranded away from a building. When there is heavy brush or trees, the drones have a harder time finding what they are looking for. An underground bunker or tunnel could be effective, but if the location is discovered, grenades and other explosives could still be dropped on it. In May of 2021, the Israel Defense Forces sent the first military drone swarm into combat. It hit dozens of targets, along with other missiles and munitions. Not much else is known about the event. Step 2. Use camouflage. Drones require infrared cameras to find their targets using heat sensors. These sensors can be evaded by being equipped with some form of heavy metal covering, such as a mylar thermal blanket. Step 3. Confuse them. An engineering professor at the U.S. Naval Postgraduate School, Isaac K. Miner, says that stopping a swarm is more than just using bullets to knock them down. They need to be outsmarted. According to K. Miner, in order to defeat the swarm, you need to take advantage of its programmed protocols. For example, with a swarm that has a collision avoidance rule, a few outsider drones can herd the swarm and force them to run into each other. If the swarm is programmed to attack something specific, you can use decoys. However, the challenge here is figuring out what exactly the drones have been told to do. This can be determined by observing their movements and seeing how they react to foreign objects. Sending in outside drones can provoke reactions that can be analyzed and used against the swarm. Step 4. Fight back. If you are lucky enough to be caught in a swarm during a hunting trip, small caliber bullets might work on smaller drones. It would be difficult, however, to take out thousands of drones using just guns. But in a worst-case scenario event, this can be a good option for at least taking out a few drones. Step 5. Jam them up. Many drones can be stopped, or at the very least deterred via jamming their GPS or Wi-Fi signals. There are many companies working on technology to disable drones. Raytheon in the US is developing technology to disable drones with an electromagnetic pulse. If you see the drones in the sky and they seem like they're coming for you, hopefully this is not the beginning of World War III. It looks exhilarating in the movie Top Gun, but flying a fighter jet could be one of the worst things you'll ever experience. You'll soar through the sky faster than the speed of sound. You'll feel immense pressure on every part of your body, and all the blood will drain from your brain. But if Tom Cruise can do it, so can you, right? Here's how to survive. Top Gun. Like Maverick and Goose, if you want to become a fighter jet pilot, you'll need to graduate as a naval aviator first, then get sent to the U.S. Navy Fighter Weapons School, nicknamed Top Gun. But this is not a regular training course. At the beginning of the Vietnam War, Navy aviators didn't get the best results. The Navy set up training that required fighter pilots and their wingmen to train to withstand enormous amounts of pressure that can be several times stronger than the force of gravity. So, if you want to become Iceman or Wingman and hit the skies, here's what you need to do. How can you avoid passing out? Why is it so important to pick the right suit? And how could flexing your muscles save your life? With the upcoming release of the movie Top Gun: Maverick, you might think about becoming a military fighter pilot. But what would you experience? Fighter jets can travel roughly 1,960 kilometers per hour, which is more than double the speed of sound. Between 1993 and 2009, the death rate in F-16s was 1.32 per 100,000 hours. One pilot died per 100,000 hours of flying. Here's what you could do to avoid becoming a statistic. Step 1. Get in touch with gravity. When flying at such extreme speeds, military pilots must endure forces stronger than gravity. To prepare for the pressure, trainees go into a centrifuge chamber at the end of a long arm. Pilot Jack Stewart says being in the chamber and spinning around the room feels like the weight is pushing on every part of you. When you are in the centrifuge, the forces the spinning generates are the same as those you'd feel during military maneuvers and takeoffs. The amount of pressure that makes you lose consciousness is usually called G-lock. Usually, it happens when your blood begins to pool away from your brain and into your legs or abdomen. How much force can you take? The G-lock varies among individuals. Step 2. Find a good fit. To help you stay conscious, it's essential your G-suit fits well. It should squeeze your legs tightly to help keep your blood in your brain instead of pooling in your legs and abdomen. Recent G-suits are said to provide additional protection of 2.4 Gs and reduce G-related fatigue by 50%. The fit of your G-suit could make the difference between passing out and staying conscious. Just 5 to 10 seconds of reduced or diminished blood flow to your brain could make you lose consciousness. Step 3. Stay tense. Yes, we often tell you to stay calm in our videos, but tensing your body helps you if you're a fighter pilot. As a trainee, you'd learn to use isometric contractions and flex the muscles in your thighs, calves, or shoulders. It will help stop blood from pooling away from your brain. That will help increase your chances of staying conscious. Step 4. Use the hook. Keeping your helmet and mask on is crucial since the mask connects to a system that gives you oxygen when needed at higher altitudes. But if you start feeling lightheaded up there, you can use the now declassified hook maneuver. Inhale and begin saying the word hook, which will help you feel the glottis in your throat. Before pronouncing the K, close your glottis for about 3 seconds. Exhale strongly and finish saying the word hook. Then inhale. This gives your blood time to travel into your chest and heart, and it's fast enough to prevent blood from leaving your brain. Keep repeating this until you're back down where pressure is lower. Step 5. Push the eject button. No one wants to destroy a $67 million F-18 Super Hornet fighter jet, but you may need to. In 2004, an F-22 pilot safely ejected during a training mission over the Nevada desert. The pilot had no injuries and was recovered. Ejecting from a fighter jet is very risky and often considered a last choice. To eject, you'll pull one of 2 levers beside your seat. Within seconds, the aircraft canopy will open and a rocket under your pilot's seat will send you up and out of the cockpit with enormous force. It could injure or kill you. The harness straps could bruise your shoulders or break your collarbones. The good news is, your parachute opens automatically for you. In October 2021, a Navy F-18 Super Hornet pilot ejected before his jet crashed in Death Valley. Fortunately, he only had minor injuries. If you decide to become a fighter pilot, we hope you never need to use a parachute. And if you do need to use a parachute, we hope it works properly. You've accidentally stumbled onto an old minefield. Surrounded by landmines buried somewhere in the ground, you don't know where to step. One wrong move and you could be blown into pieces. Here's how to survive A live minefield. The horrors of war remain long after the fighting has stopped. Worldwide, over 100 million landmines are laying underneath the ground, waiting for someone to step on them. And unfortunately, 90% of landmine victims are civilians, and half of them are children. Africa is the continent with the highest number of landmines, and Zimbabwe has an estimated 5,500 landmines per kilometer. It only takes 1 minute to bury 1,000 of them. But even with current technology, it could take over 1,000 years to clear all the landmines in the world. Can your phone detonate a landmine? Why should you be wary of a pile of rocks? And how could a rat save your life? Step 1. Don't use your phone. Landmines are explosive devices designed to detonate from the weight of vehicles or people. They're placed under the ground, where they could hide quietly for years. When they're triggered, they project metal and debris that can destroy the victim's limbs or even kill them. If you find yourself on a minefield, freeze exactly where you are. Let everyone around you know so they'll stop moving too and won't detonate an explosive. Yell for help.
Minen!
And keep in mind that phone or radio signals can trigger remotely operated mines. If you have a GPS, use it so your rescuers can know your exact location. But try not to use a two-way radio, since radio waves will trigger certain types of mines. Step 2. Get your wheels. In 2004 in Afghanistan, 2 security forces airmen were patrolling and became trapped in an unmarked minefield. 6 explosions surrounded the vehicle, destroying their heavily armored Humvee's tires so they could not escape. 2 hours later, the airmen were rescued without injury. They were able to survive due to their military training and ballistic-resistant vehicle. Considering the damage to the Humvee, they wouldn't have survived without it. So unless you've had military training or have access to a Humvee, you better stay out of minefields. Step 3. Learn the symbols. Landmines are ridiculously cheap. Their cost of production could be as low as $3. But to get rid of all these deadly threats would cost $100 billion. If you're traveling through an unfamiliar area, get local information about landmine risk. It's important to know that there could be signs warning of landmines, but you might not recognize them. That's why you'll need to memorize them. A skull and crossbones and a big red triangle are internationally recognized symbols for minefields. But sometimes the marker identifying that mines are present may only be a bunch of sticks or a big pile of rocks. Step 4. Follow the rats. A rat could be your best friend in this situation, but not any rat, only the African giant pouched rat. They have lousy eyesight, but their excellent sense of smell can detect as little as 28 grams of explosive material. Their laser-like focus on sniffing explosives help them clear an area in 20 minutes that would take humans 25 hours to do. Step 5. Retrace your steps. If you don't have a Humvee, a specially trained rat, or a rescue crew to help, you'll need to escape the minefield on your own. Look for footprints or tire tracks. These are safe areas to work on. If they weren't safe, the people or vehicles stepping on them before you would have triggered explosions. You could also follow your footsteps back to where you entered the minefield. If an explosive detonates, drop to the ground immediately. Most of us live in countries with a democratic government. We rely on it to run the country and make the right decisions. But what if the government changed? And the next thing you know, you're living under the rule of a dictatorship. Your life would change dramatically. What would be different? Here's how to survive a dictatorship. Subscribe and like this episode for more. First, Let's make sure we know the difference between a dictatorship and a democracy. In a democracy, citizens vote for the people they want to lead. This happens in countries like the United States and the United Kingdom. A dictatorship is very different. One person or a small group of people have absolute power over a nation. Two infamous names come to mind from the last century: Hitler and Mussolini. They both used ideology and terror to control their people. If this were to happen to you and your country, it begs the questions. How likely is it that your country could become a dictatorship? What could you do to stop a dictatorship from seizing power? And who could you trust? Step 1. Speak up. If you think your country could be falling into a dictatorship, make sure you speak up. You'll be running out of time. History shows that dictatorships take over in a snap. Step 2. Be skeptical. Dictatorships use propaganda. In recent years, we know it as fake news.
What is it called? Fake news.
Don't believe everything you see or hear in the media. Newspapers, TV, and the internet can all be controlled by dictatorships, so think critically and logically. Being skeptical can help you assess the information you hear, and being self-aware is crucial to keeping a balanced view on what is going on. Step 3. Trust no one. If a dictatorship rules your country, you don't know who you can trust. Your neighbor, your best friend, even your family could be against you. Anyone could be a spy, so be careful what you say to everyone. If you disagree with the dictatorship, you'll never know who might be listening in on your conversations. Step 4. Keep your head down. People who stand out from the crowd by expressing their views will be the first to disappear. To survive, let people know you do not oppose the dictatorship. Fall into line and follow the rules. Take extra care if you are part of a minority group. And we're not just talking about race. Any minority group can be targeted. Your religious views, sexual orientation, and other factors could be a target of persecution. Step 5. Flee the country. This is a big step to take. You could be leaving your home, maybe your family, and everything you know. But this could be your only option to escape from a dictatorship. If you're lucky, neighboring countries will accept refugees. If they don't, escaping could be just as risky as staying in your country. In recent times, there have been stories of people fleeing North Korea. Every year, 1,000 people escape from the country in search of a better life. Step 6. Don't lose hope. Maybe the most important thing you can do under a dictatorship is to hold on to hope. If you lose hope, the other steps you took to survive could be for nothing. Losing hope could be devastating. If you have a family, they will rely on you to stay strong. Even if you cannot fight or oppose the dictatorship, be hopeful, knowing that someone is fighting and you are not alone. Celebrate little things to keep your spirits up. Your culture and traditions are important, so don't forget who you are. You never know what will happen. The dictatorship could be toppled as quickly as it took power. We need to make it clear that the likelihood of a dictatorship happening in most places in the world is unlikely. In recent times, countries like the US and India have shown signs and ideology associated with dictatorships, but in reality, it would be very unlikely to happen. The one thing we do know from history is that dictatorships always bring about persecution and deaths of millions of people. But even through all the terror, hope and love always seem to prevail. You're at the gun range with your friend, enjoying some target practice after a busy week. While retrieving the target, your friend accidentally points the gun in your direction. Bad news, the gun wasn't empty. You've been shot, and you need to get help right away, or you will die. Here's how to survive a bullet wound. Gun-related deaths and injuries occur around the world every day. In the United States alone, there are more than 100 gun-related deaths daily, and 200 more people are shot and wounded. The amount of damage a bullet can do to a human is devastating. A 14-year-old boy was shot in the abdomen. While the wound didn't look life-threatening from the outside, the bullet changed course inside the boy's body. It tore through his intestines, pancreas, spleen, stomach, diaphragm, and a lung before planting itself in the boy's spine. Thankfully, after 4 hours of surgery and a couple of follow-up visits, the boy survived. It's estimated that you'll have an 80 to 90% chance of survival if you're shot in a non-fatal area. But not everyone will be as fortunate as that 14-year-old boy. If you survive, you could end up with serious life-changing injuries. Some of the damage is due to the bullet piercing your body, but the bullet's momentum can be deadly. Bullets come in different shapes and sizes, and each bullet has different characteristics of energy transfer. A 9mm bullet, which is usually used by law enforcement officers, can travel up to 1,450 kilometers per hour and hit you with the force of about 470 joules. If we go up a few sizes, the 5.56mm rifle round is often used in assault rifles like the AR-15 and the M4. It travels at a speed of 3,300 kilometers per hour. When it hits its target, it delivers a whopping 1,760 joules of energy. That's more than 4 times the energy of a 9mm bullet. If you get hit with all that energy, your skin will absorb it, but then the energy has to be transferred somewhere. The bullet's entrance hole will form a large cavity, and then it will fall back on itself. The trauma from this impact alone could cause serious damage. So if you've been shot or see someone get shot, what's the next step to help them survive? Step 1. Stop the bleeding. The first and most important step is to try and stop the bleeding. Put pressure on the wound using whatever you have available, like a shirt or bandages. A former Green Beret, Connor Narcisco, says that of all preventable deaths that occur on the battlefield, 90% of them are due to blood loss. So keep as much blood in your body as possible. Step 2. Look for an exit wound. After putting pressure on the entry wound, look for an exit wound. If there is one, there will be a large cavity. Apply pressure to the exit wound too. If it's a large wound, you'll need to make sure that air doesn't get sucked in. This could cause a lung to collapse. Try to fill the wound with gauze or bandages, then find tape or something that can make a solid seal around the wound to keep air out. Step 3. Call for help. After the shooting, you should immediately call for assistance. Getting an ambulance on site as soon as possible is critical to surviving a bullet wound. After being shot, if a patient can make it to an emergency room in the next 60 minutes, they are more likely to survive. It's called the golden hour. Step 4. Watch for shock. Shock usually occurs when blood has been lost. This can happen if there isn't enough pressure applied to the entry or exit wounds. Going into shock can cause loss of consciousness. If the bullet wound's position allows it, lie down and try to elevate your legs. Loosen any tight-fitting clothes or belts and try to stay warm. If you're helping someone else who's been shot, watch for warning signs like pale and clammy skin, dizziness, and rapid breathing. Put your coat or sweater on the person. Step 5. Prevent infection. Usually you wouldn't remove the bandage because taking it off can tear open the wound. But again, if you can't call for help or you're in a disaster situation where medics can't get to you, try to make sure the wound is clean. If the wound isn't dressed correctly or redressed after some time, you run the risk of getting an infection. This can cause many complications. Step 6. Rest. When you're shot, your body has a lot to cope with. Rest and allow your body to recuperate and repair itself. Being shot can be a terrifying experience, and you might not look at life the same way afterwards. But it is possible to survive a bullet wound if you act quickly, safely, and effectively.
Explosions, in their simplest form, are rapid releases of energy accompanied by shock waves and often destructive consequences. Over the centuries, humans have harnessed this power, transforming it into tools of construction, destruction, and, unfortunately, warfare. Today, we're comparing the vast spectrum of explosions, from the small sparks that light up the night sky to the earth-shaking blasts that alter the course of history. what was the biggest explosion ever created by humans? And how did agricultural supplies figure into one of the deadliest explosions in the United States? Well, we'll get there, but for now, let's start small. Firecrackers, the sparkly stars of special celebrations. The intended purpose? Well, they're all about festivities, bringing joy and color to special occasions. Very popular in New Year's celebrations around the world. But these miniature explosives pack a punch, reaching a few meters in height. Despite their small size, they can cause harm if you don't know how to handle them. Yeah, with unsupervised usage, they can cause injuries and sometimes property damage. The most common injuries include hearing damage and burns, but in more extreme cases, they can cost you a finger or an eye. So be safe and keep a safe distance from lit firecrackers. Never hold a lit firecracker in your hand, and think about wearing ear protection. Even the smallest explosions demand respect, and they only get bigger from here. Okay, moving up the explosive ladder, let's take a look at the controlled power of dynamite. Dynamite explosions, with their reach extending to tens of meters, are a versatile tool for excavation and demolition and are the workhorses of construction and mining. But dynamite has also been infamously associated with criminal activity. Yeah, you might remember it from the Wild West era when bank robbers used it to bust open safes. Well, the use of dynamite in these situations led to a dramatic rise in security measures. Demolitions using dynamite cause significant structural damage and can send debris flying within the blast zone. If you find yourself in a situation where dynamite is being used, well, make darn sure to maintain a safe distance. Pay attention to the posted warnings and follow evacuation instructions. Wearing a helmet and safety glasses will give you an additional layer of defense against flying debris. But unfortunately, not all explosions are for construction or celebrations. Bombs used in warfare, whether dropped from planes or detonated by other means, result in devastating explosions, often reaching heights of over 100 meters. Think about World War II's Blitz in 1940 and 41 as an infamous example of widespread bombing. Major cities, including London, saw relentless attacks aimed at breaking the morale of the civilian population. However, the biggest non-nuclear warfare explosion was in Afghanistan in April of 2017. The US military dropped the mother of all bombs, or MOAB. This massive bomb, filled with 11 tons of high explosives, explodes above the ground and destroys all surfaces, mines, and enemies within a 150-meter radius. But beyond the physical destruction, these explosions are intended to cripple societies and military forces. In the unfortunate event of a bombing, your survival depends on quick and informed actions. Find shelter immediately, follow emergency plans meticulously, and stay informed about the safest routes to navigate the chaos. While there's no strategy that guarantees absolute safety, being prepared is a powerful ally in times of conflict. Okay, moving on to a less tragic scenario. Have you ever wondered how buildings vanish so neatly? Well, the answer is controlled demolition. Explosives strategically placed to bring down a structure. The tallest building ever to be imploded with controlled demolition was Detroit's Greater Hudson store in 1998. This building had a height of 125 meters. The main reasons for these explosions are to make space for new development or to eliminate unsafe buildings. And when performed correctly, these explosions result in a controlled collapse within the demolition zone. But if they're not carefully planned, there's a risk of dust and debris affecting the surrounding area. If you find yourself near a scheduled building demolition, well, follow safety guidelines, ensuring that you're at a safe distance. Or better yet, just get the heck out of there. Protective gear like a dust mask can help reduce the chance of debris and airborne particles getting in your airway. Okay, now let's shift our focus to a more sinister creation. Fertilizer bombs. These improvised explosive devices have left a permanent mark on our world. Fertilizer bombs are made by using common agricultural ingredients, typically combining ammonium nitrate with fuel to create a volatile mixture. The size of a fertilizer bomb explosion is unpredictable and can vary based on the type of explosive materials used and the quantity. Today, we'll focus on a bomb that had the blast equivalent of over 1,800 kilograms of TNT and could be heard and felt 90 kilometers away. I'm talking about the Oklahoma City bombing of 1995. This act of domestic terrorism targeted the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building with a bomb made up of more than 2 tons of ammonium nitrate fertilizer and fuel oil concealed in a rental truck. 1/3 of the building was instantly reduced to rubble. Dozens of cars were incinerated and more than 300 nearby buildings were damaged. A total of 168 people were killed, including 19 children. More than 500 people were injured. To survive a fertilizer bomb explosion, you'd need to take shelter immediately, ideally behind a sturdy structure in order to minimize exposure to flying debris. If you're indoors, move away from windows and toward the center of the building. Okay, we're nearing the end of our list and we're now entering the realm of nuclear explosions. The atomic bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in World War II were extremely powerful, with explosions reaching heights of over 1 kilometer. These devastating bombs led to Japan's surrender in 1945. The cataclysmic aftermath of these attacks showcased the unparalleled capability of nuclear weapons to cause mass destruction. Thankfully, to this day, Hiroshima and Nagasaki remain the only instances in which a nuclear weapon has been deployed in armed conflict. Those bombs resulted in hundreds of thousands of deaths, the obliteration of entire city blocks, and long-term health consequences due to radiation exposure. These explosions fundamentally altered the course of history, influencing global geopolitics and nuclear regulations. Now, in the event of an imminent nuclear attack, getting to a sturdy structure with a fallout shelter is crucial. Want more tips about making it through a nuclear apocalypse? Well, we have a lot of videos on how to survive one. Hit that subscribe button to stay informed and stay alive. Alright, now it's time for the grand finale, the largest man-made explosion in history, courtesy of the Tsar Bomba. The mushroom cloud from this Soviet hydrogen bomb test reached heights of over 60 kilometers. This colossal bomb was conceived as a demonstration of the Soviet Union's nuclear capability during the Cold War arms race. It sent a clear message to rival nations. Its explosion could obliterate an entire city, causing firestorms and immense damage to infrastructure. And the repercussions of a detonation like this would extend well beyond the immediate blast zone, as well as produce long-lasting nuclear fallout. Surviving a Tsar Bomba-like explosion would be extraordinarily challenging. Its enormous scale and devastating effects are unprecedented. In the unlikely event of such a scenario, well, I don't need to tell you this, but evacuate the blast zone immediately. Find shelter underground and follow government instructions to protect yourself against exposure to radiation. It's happened! A nuclear explosion! If you weren't killed in the initial blast, the fallout can finish the job. Whether it's an act of war or terrorism, all that really matters in the moments after the blast is that there are ways to save yourself and your loved ones. So, how is it possible to stay safe? Here's what you can do to survive a nuclear attack. The worst thing about a nuclear attack is that there are multiple ways it can kill you. The explosion, the heat, and the radiation can all cause damage and death. In this day and age, a nuclear device can be small enough to be concealed and carried by a single person, or it can be a missile. You can have a few minutes warning, or no warning at all. The flash from the bomb can kill you by burning or vaporizing you. After that, a shockwave can crush your house or smash you with debris. If you survive the initial blast, your first problem is radiation fallout. Fallout is radioactive soil and debris that rains down on us after the blast. Why is radiation fallout dangerous? It damages the very cells that our body is made of. Radiation is energy moving as waves or particles, and it exists everywhere around us, including in the sun, soil, and rocks. That kind of radiation is considered to be low-level radiation, and it's fairly safe. Medium-level radiation causes fever, headaches, and vomiting. High levels of radiation damage your internal organs severely and can kill you. A nuclear attack is definitely in the high-level category. So, what is your first priority after the blast? Well, the radiation fallout takes about 15 minutes to come down to ground level after the explosion, so in that time, you need to take cover. Step 1. Get inside. Brick or concrete buildings will protect you best against radiation. However, you don't have much time, so don't waste it by looking around. It's important to get inside any structure as soon as you can. Take off your clothes, they're contaminated. Stay away from the roof and the outer walls of the building. Go to the basement or the middle of the building. Step 2. Shelter in place for 24 hours. The most dangerous fallout is during the first few hours after the explosion, because the radiation is most powerful then. Keep your loved ones inside, including your pets. If your family is separated, don't try to get together for the first 24 hours. It's most important for everyone to stay inside, wherever they are. Step 3. Stay connected. If your cell phone, TV, and internet are all unavailable because of the attack, try battery-operated or crank radios. Tune in to any media you can to find out when it's safe to exit, and where you should go to stay safe and to reunite with family. Step 4. Don't drive. The worst thing you can do is to get in your car and get stuck in gridlock along with everyone else as the fallout comes down. As always, it's best to prepare ahead of time for dangerous events. You're probably not expecting a nuclear attack, but it doesn't hurt to be prepared. Look around to identify potential shelters near your school, work, or home. Prepare an emergency supply kit and keep it in potential shelter locations. This kit should include bottled water, packaged food, medicine, and a flashlight. And buy a battery-powered or crank radio as well. A nuclear attack is devastating, and depending on its size and how close you and your loved ones are to the explosion, it could be deadly. It could also lead to ruined cities, dysfunctional societies, and sickness. However, if you're prepared ahead of time and you follow this advice, you'll improve your chances of surviving a nuclear attack. But if you're looking for something to pass the time while waiting for Doomsday, you can always learn how to survive other life-threatening encounters. Do you know what to do if you're attacked by a gorilla? Well, you can learn next time on How to Survive.